I am so fucking done with Bell Let's Talk. Okay, so quick explanation of the Bell Let's Talk campaign. Bell is one of the giant 3 internet and cell phone provider corporations here in Canada. Every year since 2010, they have put on a mental health awareness campaign by the name of Bell Let's Talk. Interesting that their name slid into that. Basically, for every text message sent through their network, view of their YouTube video, and social media share using their hashtag #BellLet'sTalk, the company donates 5 cents to mental health initiatives. It's been said that Bell Let's Talk has become a portal to the global discussion of mental health. Sounds great, right? So what's my beef with this? Glad you asked. So Bell Let's Talk claims to have partnered with more than 1,300 organizations who have granted access to over 5.5 million Canadians to mental health services. If this is the case, though, why is the current state of affairs in terms of being able to access mental health supports so dismal? Bell Let's Talk has a particular emphasis on supporting youth mental health. So why was there over 28,000 kids in 2021 in Ontario alone on a waitlist spanning up to a year until they can access treatment for their mental health? Also, anecdotally, the majority of the people I know who experience mental health challenges come up against tremendous barriers trying to just access services for mental health here in Canada. You have to be imminently suicidal to have access to any kind of debatable help. This leads me to my next qualm of much of the funds going toward crisis response services. Now, don't get me wrong, there is definitely a need for crisis response. However, I don't believe we are doing ourselves justice to assert that this is the part of the problem that needs addressing. Why aren't psychologists and other mental health clinician visits covered under government health plans? Why are mental health nurses providing clinical therapy due to shortages of psychiatrists? Why don't we have mental health clinics that see and treat patients just as regular health clinics do? Why are untrained police officers responding to mental health calls? And what about the larger root issues contributing to mental health crises? Why aren't we properly addressing and making amends for colonialism? Why aren't we addressing racism? Why aren't we confronting homophobia, fatphobia, saneism, and ableism? Why aren't we funding safe and supportive housing for all? Why aren't we focusing on food security? These are all the root causes of both stigma and mental health struggles. This is where our efforts need to be concerted, not on more of the band-aid solution of crisis response solutions or the lip service provided with awareness, let's talk about it campaigns. There's many more problems with the Bell Let's Talk campaign. Let's talk about the ridiculous onus it puts on the individual to address and work on their mental health challenges. Bell's campaign website features 43 people, both celebrities and community members, sharing their experience with mental illness. The profiles exhibit a somewhat adequate amount of diversity in terms of cultural, ethnic, and sexual minority identities, albeit only one of these people has schizophrenia. But the larger point here is that their stories are 100% homogenous in regard to facing some sort of mental health challenge, addressing it on an individual level, and recovering in the sense of rejoining the workforce. Not only is this problematic in terms of, again, shirking responsibility to address these issues at both a societal and systemic level, but also the way they are framing what it means to recover. Basically, all of these stories and the common narrative being sold in the current mental health discourse is that of recovery as a return to productivity. First, mental illness strikes, impeding productivity in some way, whether it's with work or school, which becomes the impetus for intervention. Then, through medical intervention and individual hope and resilience, the illness is overcome. This concept of overcoming is confirmed by a return to productivity, whether in the form of paid employment, education, advocacy, or volunteer work. And yes, I am part of this narrative. Sure, these stories can provide hope for many who are experiencing their own mental health challenges, but what does this message do for people who maybe don't return to productive work? And we haven't even gotten to the part where a huge conglomerate corporation is behind this campaign. Let's call a spade here and acknowledge that Bell is a service provider receiving a financial award in exchange for the publicity of the campaign. BCE, which is Bell Canada Enterprises, is worth $60 billion. They have given about $7 million each year as a result of this campaign. There is a very good chance that they spend even more than the $7 million each year on advertising and branding for the campaign. Does that math add up to you? Bell Let's Talk Day usually drums up a lot of content of people sharing their personal experiences with their mental health. This is great that people are talking about their mental health openly, but it's really only effective in getting people talking for one day a year or self-diagnosing online rather than getting help or tangibly supporting others beyond this one date. The state often also feels extremely taxing and burdensome for people drudging through the trenches of their mental health on a daily basis, as often it feels overwhelming and somewhat performative on this one day. The ickiness of this goes even further in these regards, where advertisers are essentially finding out who to target for ads for things like anti-anxiety blankets, antidepressant vitamins, and self-help books, to name a few, based on who shares about their mental health on social media platforms on this day. So what do we do about all this? And what should we be doing instead of falling prey to campaigns like Bell Let's Talk? Well, first and foremost, I think it's important to really understand the points I've made thus far in this video. Mental illness is not a buzzword to be exploited one day per year for capital gains. It is also very much not an issue to be overcome on just an individual level. There are tremendous systemic and societal factors at play that affect our mental health. So first, you can educate yourself on these intersecting factors and on the societal factors impacting mental health. Second, you can support, whether through money, volunteering, or simply spreading the word about organizations and initiatives that are actually addressing these issues. Think housing, food, racism, colonialism, 2S LGBTQ+, and more organizations and initiatives. Third, you can understand and normalize talking about mental health in a way that doesn't center itself around recovery as in a return to productivity. I often talk about recovery in terms of being able to lead a life you find fulfillment and meaning in. And this absolutely does not just have to include paid employment or school or any of these other misguided markers of success and recovery. Fourth, you can have these conversations with the people in your life all year round. Mental illness is not this polite little topic of conversation that only pops its head in one day a year. It's important to keep talking and supporting each other every day. And fifth, you can lobby and write your government representatives pushing for better mental health care. Vote for representatives who are going to fight to broaden and expand mental health services, and then hold them accountable to this. Push the fact that mental health is health and should be given just as much time and resources as general health. If we genuinely want to effect meaningful change in terms of how our societies approach and treat mental health and mental illness, it's time to shift the conversation away from these feel-good narratives. The reality is that these narratives are not the realities for many who are struggling with mental health challenges. And creating this glossy, ultimately empty mental health campaign for corporate gains over real societal change is very much part of the problem. I do not support Bell Let's Talk while they fail to acknowledge these basic cornerstones of the real conversations that need to happen around mental health. I will not be participating in Bell Let's Talk Day, and if you want to see meaningful change in terms of mental health, neither should you.